What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. Massive video, a bombshell in the community. This morning, a Dutch judge ruled that EA should be fined every week until it removes FIFA loot boxes. This a continuation of a 2018 investigation from the Netherlands Gaming Authority that basically has concluded that EA has violated their gambling rules with the MUT packs and the devices it has in store for the game. Obviously, we see very similar litigation, although EA has not been proven guilty in Canada and in the US. However, my opinion on this is that this is a big step backwards because basically this has shown a loophole in EA's response to these lawsuits, which has always been their packs have no value outside of the game and only inside of the game. This is why they promoted it in the past, just like a Kinder Egg or a surprise mechanic. However, you have countries now that are looking into what's actually happening, and despite what's deemed here as a lengthy legal battle between EA and the Gaming Authority, they have deemed that this is in violation of the Gambling Act, and they will fine not only EA, but the Swiss subsidiary they operate under each week until this is resolved. The challenge this brings is it is showing that the monetary amount not being returned to the gamer does not matter. And as you continue to see countries look at how these are dealt with independently, I think more and more are going to take the stance that quote-unquote wins when it goes piece by piece. When you look at what's going on in Canada right now, a pending class action lawsuit, they have taken a little bit different stance in saying that they believe that these cards have a real-world value. It's proven by the fact there's a secondary market, and that is exactly what's being shown to, I guess, win the argument here, is that it no longer matters if EA is saying, hey, this can't be converted into real money. The fact that it is at some point is all these independent companies need to understand to know that this is part of a gambling mechanic built into their game, and if EA is going to continue to do that, they need to actually position themselves as someone that can run a gambling mechanic, whether it be in their game or anywhere else. So essentially, what I look at here is a really tough ask for EA Sports, and this goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with the fact that we're seeing a lot of resellers be banned this year, a lot of accounts closed this year, because EA has to make sure they close all these doors that have been opened that show what the real value of these cards is. We just had streamers for Madden Ultimate Team last week talking about, the value of the cards. EA can't prevent them from saying that, but that becomes very damaging when you have gamers talk about what they sold cards for, how much a card cost, when you look into the fact that when you resell these cards back to EA, they only give you a percentage of what you paid for it. It really sets a lot of dominoes, to use a gambling reference, in place to fall. And that's going to be something they really have to work hard to overcome. I said in the interview I did over the weekend about the Canadian lawsuit, I think ultimately what's going to catch up to EA is the amount of money that's being spent here is probably not recognized by most people. That's why when you look at what Canada did, they came out and said they want to see the records. They want to know the money that was spent, and I'm sure at some point they're going to go back and try to determine what the value was provided. So if gamers bought $1 million worth of packs and you only provided what we can construe as a real value based on you telling us what was provided of $300,000, that is going to start, in my opinion, because this is all yet to be actually proven against EA, that is what is going to start to really put the, I guess, favor against EA when they look into what's actually happening here. And that's why I feel like in my country, obviously you guys know I live in the United States, putting a cap of $5 million on this was not a good idea. Whereas with Canada, they basically said, listen, go back and show us for, in some cases, a decade, how much you've made off this. We need to better understand how much money is transpiring here, and then we'll determine whether you actually are doing something that breaks our guidelines in our gambling acts. A lot of people look at this as a parental issue, a moral issue, but what we're seeing here is something very much different. You're seeing them take the stance of, if you're selling something to someone that is a game of chance, that emits something as value, that is deemed as gambling. And not so much that they care about who is purchasing these packs or what age or what demographic or what amount, but more so the fact that EA doesn't have licenses within these countries to operate any type of gambling, and therefore they need to be penalized for doing that because they're violating the country's rules. That is going to be a big hurdle, and as I said, go back and watch my video with the Yard. I think one thing EA really stressed with the Yard this year was getting away from all this. They don't want team packs. They don't want game of chance. They don't want 1 in a million. They're still there. Of course, they're going to be there until something like this happens where they're going to be fined unless they remove them. But when you talk about buying digital equipment in the Yard, that removes all the element of chance. That shows you, hey, I'm buying these red socks. I'm buying these blue gloves. So it's pretty clear to me the fact that the Yard was kind of rushed in, not a lot of fanfare, certainly no one asking for it. You look at why they've done what they've done, it aligns perfectly with what they would have known ultimately was at least the conclusion the gaming authorities were coming to. So understand, when they say gaming authority, they don't mean video gaming authority. They mean gaming authority as in gambling authority. So EA, at least from 2018, was aware that their argument that the Madden Ultimate Team or FIFA Ultimate Team packs don't have value outside of the game was running into some speed bumps, and the fact that they weren't guaranteeing the end user exactly what was going to be provided, even if they're showing percentages or 1 in 500 packs, 1 in 2,000 packs, they knew part of the violation in terms of they were being pushed against was the fact that apparently total value versus value given, also how many people were getting what they assumed would be given to them on the packs, was creating a real problem. The only way to really remove that from the game is to give absolute guarantees. Once you do that, you are no longer in violation of any gaming or gambling act, but you are rather just providing a digital good. So when you look at, here's all of a sudden the Yard showing up, it really oddly aligns itself with what EA knew it had to distance itself from. Now, certainly, people will say, well, if that was the case, why did they continue, even now you can see, to sell these packs? Well, quite frankly, they continued to make money selling them. They knew there would be continued legal actions against them, so it benefited them at the time to sell them up until the day they couldn't. And who knows, they could look at these fines and say, listen, we'll make more selling the packs than the actual fine, so we'll continue to take the financial hit. So it'll be very interesting to see if EA actually pays these fines and continues to sell the cards, because if they do, that's why you can see they're up to a maximum of 10 million. They may adjust those fines to where it does not benefit EA to continue to sell these in spite of the injunction. But this is going to be something that I think is going to bother EA for a very long time. I said before in another video, obviously EA, completely innocent until proven guilty on any of these lawsuits. But once one of them goes over, I think you're going to continue to have countries, legislators come up, look at what's happened here, draft something, put it into play. If for no other reason, they know there's a lot of money to be had. So why, like we talked about, the U.S. wants to put a $5 million cap on it, they look at other countries getting a lot more. Now, you'd have to compare the Deutsch to the dollar, but whatever the Deutsch currency is, you'd have to look at how that compares, but certainly you would look at the fact that money is power and power is greed. So you're going to have people that want to make this into a topic they can profit off of. They can show that they took down a gaming company. They really have people from the other side of the spectrum that truly may or may not be evil based on how you feel about politics that want to ruin a company for this. And whether that's right or wrong is something you have to understand. But the reality is, you have to look at what's taking place here. It's a massive change in the community. I don't know if it's good or bad. I do know that anything that impacts a company in terms of how they operate and how they pay their employees, at least right now, is not good. But I would also offer that EA has made a lot of money off these packs. And from my stance with Madden, not a lot of it seems to go back into the final product, into making it better. And perhaps if that had been the case, you wouldn't have had to rely so much on these microtransactions, because you're selling a quality game from the beginning. And hopefully that's the tough lesson that EA learns in this. Hopefully they, get out of this in every case as cleanly as possible, but hopefully they understand that they need to sell a quality game to a customer, not a microtransaction, and people will be just as happy, if not more happy, to spend extra money with the company or on the game if they're originally satisfied with it, rather than just let along on getting something that makes them feel empowered within the game or a special ability within the game, because ultimately I think they took the wrong approach in these packs and really made it about who could spend the most money to get the best team, rather than who knew the game the best or who could be the best in the game itself. Love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you checking out. And I will be back, not with a live stream tonight, but with an amazing edition of the very unwatched Axis Football Baltimore Paladins franchise. If you guys have watched the almost 3.5 hours that you'll have up tonight, you'll see a lot of things franchise gamers want that, quite frankly, aren't in Madden, and don't rely on canned stories to get the job done when it comes to player progressions, contract negotiations, player battles, just to name a few. Other than that, as I said, appreciate you watching this, and I will be back in the week with more commentary.